Teen offers to carry groceries for food, has no idea who he's approaching. Like most people, Matt White makes trips to the grocery store once a week. One night he was making his way to the store in his hometown of Memphis, Tennessee. But in this unusual experience, he would make a highly unusual encounter. White was approached by a total stranger after paying for his groceries. It was a young teenage boy. He didn't know it at the time, but that boy had an offer to make him. It was a humble offer of simple implications. At least that's what the teen thought. But from that moment on, the lives of the two men would intertwine and change forever. Matt White was going about his business one night at a Kroger grocery store when something happened that would change his life entirely. The then 30-year-old music business graduate was going aisle by aisle, picking up the usual goods for his home. It began as a totally ordinary trip to the store. This particular Kroger was located in an upper-class part of an otherwise poor Memphis, Tennessee area. But White had never experienced anything strange while shopping there. After he paid for his groceries and began to exit the store this time, though, it ended a little differently than he had expected. Just as Matt White began to exit the Kroger store, a mysterious teenage boy began to walk toward him. White wondered what the teen wanted. Was he a beggar? Why was he all by himself at the store? He eyed him curiously as he approached, thinking of the possible scenarios in his head. Then the boy finally arrived in front of him. Before he even managed to begin to form his words, White noticed the look on the teen's face, a combination of shame and despair. The teen had his attention from the beginning. Who was he and what did he want? Matt White towered over the sad boy standing before him. Why had he approached him? Well, it turns out the kid was 16-year-old Chauncey Jones Black, and he had trekked via bus to what he referred to as the rich people's Kroger in hopes of working for food. That's right, Black wasn't asking for spare change. He was willing to work, to do whatever he needed to do just to eat. Standing before White empty-handed, Black had only an hour before he had to catch the last bus home, where his mother was waiting for him. What would White do next? Chauncey Jones Black was visibly hungry. He looked ashamed, hungry, and broken. Matt White would later recall of the encounter. The teen asked White if he could work for him. He would do literally anything for a bite to eat, no matter how small the task. The teen offered to carry White's groceries to the car in exchange for a pack of glazed donuts. In my heart, I screamed aloud yes, but to him I just chuckled and said, "Yeah, dude, we'll get you some donuts," White would later say, but the incident certainly wouldn't end with a pack of donuts. Matt White felt terrible for Chauncey Jones Black. His mind flooded with thoughts about who he might be and what led him to such desperate measures. At the same time, White found his approach inspiring, so he asked the teen about his personal life in hopes of learning more. Apparently, Black and his mother owned very little. They had literally nothing at their house. Black said he didn't even have a phone on him, only the bus pass with which he traveled and the clothes on his back. White and Black began walking toward the donuts together. The need didn't know it yet, but he was in for quite the surprise. After Chauncey Jones Black picked out a pack of donuts, Matt White felt that he hadn't done enough. Here was a boy with nothing in his refrigerator at home, asking for help. No, offering to work for it, and White was going to send him away with a box of sugary dough? Technically, it might not have been his responsibility to feed someone else's kid, but there was something about Black that made him want to help. He seemed like such a good kid. No, White thought, not today. Today, he was going to do something good for a teen in need. As the two continued to chat, donuts in hand, Chauncey Jones Black quickly realized they weren't walking toward the cash register. Matt White was leading him through different aisles, initiating what seemed to be a full-blown shopping spree. Black couldn't believe his eyes as the man who had agreed to buy him only donuts began reaching into shelves for more. White began loading the cart with common household goods, everything from cereal and Cheetos to fruit, pasta, peanut butter, milk, soap, and toothbrushes. Black was shocked. It must have been hard for him to process what was happening. The two kept talking throughout it all, and White learned something about Black that warmed his heart. As Matt White and Chauncey Jones Black walked through Kroger, White inquired about the teen's personal life. How was school? How was his mother doing? All the while we talked, and he told me how he makes straight A's in school and is trying to get a job to help his mom pay rent. This kid was amazing, White later recalled. Even in his precarious state, Chauncey Jones Black didn't intend to remain stuck in the cycle of poverty. He was a boy that made it a habit of setting ambitious goals and working tirelessly towards them. And Black was indeed full of surprises his new friend would soon discover. In his conversation with Matt White, Chauncey Jones Black kept referring to himself as poor, the musician recalled. It's not as though White hadn't understood already that Black came from a family of little means, but it grabbed his attention because the teen followed up with quite possibly the most inspirational things he had ever heard. The teen's goal was to become a wealthy business owner so that he could help other people in his neighborhood, and even buy them groceries like White. It was clear Black greatly appreciated White's gesture of kindness, but the story didn't end there, and White began to feel a sense of attachment to the boy. After Matt White paid for Chauncey Jones Black's groceries, the teen thanked him. His bus would be coming soon, Black said, and so it was time for him to go. He glanced at White gratefully and began heading towards his stop. The boy couldn't have possibly predicted what was about to happen next. As White watched him, well, he realized he couldn't. White couldn't watch the poor kid get on that bus again with all those bags of groceries, so he offered to drive him home and deliver the goods himself. But what he was about to see was too much for his heart to handle. I gave Chauncey Jones Black a ride home so that he didn't have to take the bus, and when we got to his house, I was truly humbled, Matt White wrote. When the two arrived at the family's residence, White couldn't believe his eyes. It turned out the teen wasn't exaggerating when he said he and his mother didn't have anything at home. The Black household was totally barren. Chauncey and his mother didn't have proper beds. They were sleeping on pads made out of sleeping bags. They had 2 lamps and nothing in their fridge. Nothing, White emphasized. Something else that White observed in particular during the visit haunted him. After Matt White arrived at Chauncey Black's residence in South Memphis, he was also taken aback by the boy's mother, Barbara. She was so sweet and gracious, and she showed genuine appreciation for what White had done for her son. She also looked fragile and seemed to be in pain. White quickly noticed something wasn't right. Barbara has a condition that makes it hard for her to get around on her own, and she has shakes. It was clear to White that she loved her son and wished she could take better care of him. It was then White realized that while all he had done for the teen and his mother was great, it still wasn't enough. Before Matt White could do anything else for the Black family, there were groceries to unpack. The look in Chauncey Black's eyes totally changed as he and White unpacked the food and stuffed it into the kitchen. He looked like a kid again, was how White later described it. Now that the Black family's refrigerator was finally full, the time had come for White to say goodbye and go home. The singer-songwriter gave Chauncey and Barbara each a big hug and headed out. Little did either of them know it was far from the last time they would see White. Matt White couldn't get the Black family out of his head after he left, so he decided to do some more research on them, and what he learned troubled him even more. It turns out Chauncey and his mother had been living in poverty for years, getting by only on Barbara's disability checks. Chauncey, a growing high schooler, hadn't even had any new clothes purchased for him in 3 years. White kept thinking to himself, wondering, what could he do to help beyond buying them food that will only last a week or so? How could he really make a difference for the Black family? By Matt White's own admission, he was living a comfortable life when he met Chauncey, but he wasn't wealthy or able to donate enough money to the Black family to really make an impact. These days, though, there are other tools available to handle such situations. You guessed it, social media is key. White took to Facebook to share his encounter with Chauncey Black with the world in an attempt to find someone who could help. He hoped Black would inspire others online the way the remarkable teen had inspired him. As it turns out, Chauncey Black is a true charmer, because what would happen next was astonishing. Matt White was hopeful his Facebook posts would catch the internet's attention. He eventually even attached a GoFundMe link so people could donate to Chauncey Black's cause. The GoFundMe page included information about Black's clothing sizes, but the most important part is at the very bottom of the GoFundMe page. That's where White posted a video interview with Black, in which he describes his experience at the grocery store and offers his services in various jobs. Viewers found it simply impossible to watch the video and not fall in love with him. As it turned out, his story resonated with many, and that translated into financial assistance for Black. As Matt White's Facebook post picked up traffic, so did the GoFundMe account. But what exactly did he hope to accomplish for Chauncey Black with the money he was raising? Did he have some kind of plan for helping Black spend the cash as effectively as possible? Well, White did have a goal in mind. His plan was to raise enough cash to buy Chauncey Black a lawnmower so he could at least earn some summer cash before starting the 10th grade in the fall for school supplies and food. What happened next proves one should never underestimate a person who is trying his best to do good unto others. As Matt White's Facebook post picked up more and more traffic, the GoFundMe page to which it linked eventually went viral. In addition to donations, total strangers started flooding White with offers of jobs, food, clothing, and even dental care. At the time, White's Facebook post was shared 14,000 times and commented on 3,500. By this point, White began setting the bar higher. Why settle for only a lawnmower if he could maybe raise enough money for a new home for the Black family, along with a college education for Chauncey? If given the opportunity to succeed, White was certain Chauncey Black would seize it. Shares on Facebook is one thing, but what about the GoFundMe account? How much did it raise? Well, it turns out more than $340,000 eventually poured in for Chauncey and Barbara, a single mother who had survived on disability checks the entire time she raised Chauncey, despite having multiple health problems. "I did the best I could," she recalled at the time. "The past few years, Chauncey has been taking care of me. He's a good boy. I couldn't ask for better." Barbara may not have asked for better, but she and her son's lives were about to change forever. What began as a Facebook post transformed into a movement titled Chauncey's Chance. From ABC to Daily Mail and People, media outlets began covering Chauncey Black's story. Eventually, people began pointing him out on the street, as if he were some Hollywood star. It was quite a change of pace for the teen. "It's so awesome, my life has been completely changed," Black told People magazine at the time. "I can't go anywhere now without people recognizing me. They go, 'Oh my God, you're Chauncey.' And I'm like, 'Yes ma'am, I'm very happy and very grateful to everybody.' But attention isn't always a positive thing." It's not as though the news coverage had turned Chauncey Black into a household name, but the publicity certainly put him in the spotlight. Having earned over $250,000 seemingly overnight, the Black family, who lived in an impoverished part of Memphis, had to be careful. Indeed, the money brought with it demands from people Chauncey and Barbara hadn't been in close touch with before the event. "My relatives were like, 'When you get some money, can you help me?' Asking for help in business and all that kind of stuff," Black said at the time. Speaking of the money, how were the Blacks planning to handle it? $340,000 is a lot of money to receive all at once, and often in situations such as these, the recipients have to be assisted by professionals in finding the best way to spend and store their cash to make sure it lasts as long as possible. For this reason, White said he and the Black family were going to contact an attorney about handling the money so that they take the least amount of hit on taxes, so it's set up in a trust and not at risk of anybody trying to come and claim it, he told a local news channel at the time. What was White's stake in all this anyway? Some might wonder why Matt White took it upon himself to help Chauncey Black and his mother. Really though, they might ask, what's in it for him? Well, it turns out that in addition to being a musician, White is a practicing Christian who believes that his faith instructs him to help others. Instead of taking credit for himself, he thanks a higher power for coming to the aid of Black. He believes the meeting between the two wasn't by chance. In every sense of the word, God has provided, he has said of the encounter. Still though, White's mission wasn't over. With Chauncey Black given the opportunity of a lifetime to turn his and his mother's lives around, White encouraged others to look for Chauncey's out there. To him, Black's story shouldn't be only something inspirational to read about. Rather, it should be a call to action to help others in need. The focus of this is not me and what I did, because I really didn't do anything. I just captured a story and put it online. But our community, Memphis, picked up this family and put them on a platform, White said. But the Black family seems to think otherwise. While Matt White credits a higher power for putting him in touch with Chauncey Black, the teen and his mother greatly appreciate what the musician did for their family. Chauncey and Barbara Black had nothing but nice things to say about Matt White. They gave him much more credit than he gave himself. "He's the nicest person I've ever met," Chauncey said. "Nobody ever cared more than he did. He's family, that's what he is," Barbara added. "He's in our lives forever now. He's family." Of course, they are also thankful to everyone involved in donating and reaching out. As for White himself, there's more to him than meets the eye. For Matt White, it appears his efforts to help the Black family wasn't his first time doing charity work. A scan of his Facebook profile reveals White has been involved in helping other children in need in the past. Even when he is not directly involved, he posts charity success stories on his Facebook page. In a time of increasing narcissism and self-indulgence, thanks to social media, White finds solace in doing good unto others, just as the Bible instructs him to. In fact, it turns out Chauncey Black isn't the only person for whom White opened up a GoFundMe account. It turns out Matt White had also set up a GoFundMe account for a blind bottle collector he had run into in one of the rougher parts of Memphis by chance. He had found the man named J.B. Kibler digging through trash for cans so he could feed his daughter and 4 granddaughters. White had set up a GoFundMe for the then 65-year-old can man, who works from sunrise until sundown 7 days a week, with the hope of helping the man afford to take just a few days off to spend with his family. The donations eventually reached $36,000. In Memphis, White has his work cut out for him. As of 2017, Memphis was home to the largest share of poor people out of all larger American cities, according to the University of Memphis report at the time. And although poverty rates rose for every race in the city in 2016, the numbers themselves are higher for African Americans. Dr. Elena de la Vega, who produces the report annually, pointed to a number of factors that contribute to the city's high poverty rate, including transportation problems and a minimum wage she considers too low. And it turns out those numbers are just as bad for children in the southern city, which makes Chauncey Black's story all the more heartwarming. The child poverty rate highlighted in Dr. Elena de la Vega's report was a whopping 44.7%. As de la Vega put it, "What that means, and I want you to think about it, is that when you see a child walking down the street, when you see a child, there's a 50-50 chance that that child is living in poverty." As troubling as that statistic might sound, it's clear it would take many more Matt Whites to even make a dent in the problem. Indeed, it takes major effort and tremendous resources to fight poverty. But that doesn't mean individuals can't make a difference, especially when technology is on their side. GoFundMe is a for-profit online fundraising tool. That's right, the company takes 5% of all donations raised on its platform, in addition to a 2.9% payment processing fee collected on every donation and 30 additional cents for every donation. The rest of the cash goes to the cause for which the GoFundMe account was created. The platform works for individuals and organizations alike. If you need to raise money for a cause and users are willing to contribute, the website can be a useful tool. It worked for Matt White, and thanks to him, a young teen and his mother have another chance at life. When asked about having any regrets before publishing their story, which would in turn lead to a viral GoFundMe campaign, Matt confirmed that he wished they had a press representative to handle all of the media backlash they received. Anytime a story goes viral, regardless of the positive intent that it may have been accompanied by, there will always be critics. Matt recalled, "You don't know what to do." Neither he nor Chauncey were ready for the overwhelming media attention they would receive. As the campaign continued to grow, more and more absurd offers came their way. Someone offered to buy Chauncey a lawnmower from Amazon. Another offered to buy his mother new teeth. Eventually, they would be contacted by a local news station to run their story, and then The Ellen Show wanted them to make an appearance. As if the media attention wasn't enough, now GoFundMe would maintain constant contact with Matt and Chauncey on a daily basis. It was all overwhelming, to say the least. Matt said, "In the end, this whole experience has really shown me the power of God's love in a community. Before there was any money, this was just me using videos and Facebook to try to affect change in the direction of a young man's life through the kindness of others. All I intended to do was get Chauncey to come to church with me and encourage him in his efforts to have a lawn mowing business, but God had bigger plans." Now Chauncey and his mom have a home of their own and a future, and they want to go out and pay it forward, to keep the wave of love that saved their lives moving on to the next family. Seeing that happen has been the most beautiful and rewarding thing I could ever ask for. I just wanted to tell everyone that made this possible how much it means to me, and that I promise I'll work to the day I die to help keep it moving.